Well, hello everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. We are kicking off 2025 strong with a Dustless Blasting business webinar, and we are so excited you're here. My name is Kaylin, for those of you who don't know me, and this is Miss Jennifer Walker. And so today we are going to be answering all of your questions. If anything and everything about the equipment to what it's capable of and how you can start a profitable business with it, that's what you're going to learn here. And so we have gone through over 200 submitted questions that were really thorough and thought out. So we so appreciate you taking part in this webinar by being proactive and sending in great questions. We will be covering those at the very end. And then we'll also be emailing you this recap. So if you have to jump off, if you're busy, no worries. We'll be emailing you a recap with all of the answers to these questions. So let's get started. Yes. Okay, so we're going to be covering, what Dustless Blasting is, why it's a proven business opportunity, how to get customers, testimonies from our customers, and steps you need to take to get started, and then, of course, the Q&A session. But first, let's get to know us a little bit more. I think a lot of people wonder who we are, how long we've been doing this, and so I want to start us off with just a quick introduction video to who MMLJ is and what Dustless Blasting is.
Dreaming of owning your own business? At Dustless Blasting, we're here to help make that dream a reality. We're more than just equipment makers. We're your partners in creating a pathway to financial freedom. For over 80 years, we've been helping people just like you turn their goals into thriving businesses. When you join the Dustless Blasting family, you're never really on your own. From expert guidance to industry knowledge, we provide the support, tools, and resources you need every step of the way. No franchise fees, no limitations, just you, your drive, and a business that works as hard as you do. Dustless Blasting. Take control of your future. Start building something incredible today.
Do you want me to introduce yourselves?
Alrighty, so that is a little bit kind of about us, but let's take that a step further. So this is a family-owned business, and Miss Jennifer is a part of said family, so she's probably better to speak to a little bit more about our history. But Jennifer, kind of, who is MMLJ for those who don't know?
So MMLJ is a business that my dad and his brother started almost 30 years ago already that they've done, but prior to that, it was a already established business called the Sandstorm that started in 1941. Yeah. So the whole blasting business and the industry, it's just been around for so long. Yeah. But what happened within that, that industry was it just like everything else evolves over time. Yeah. And so after acquiring that business back in the early 90s, it integrated and started to move more towards soda blasting. Soda blasting became a need over sand blasting traditional ways for a lot of different industries. Yeah. Mainly from the response that there are, certain types of abrasives and medias that are being used that probably weren't quite right for the industries that they were being used in. So the soda blasting came into play, and that was great and very successful. But with that, then there was other additional evolvements through paints and other, processes. And with that became a known need to try to find a way to really incorporate a better way to prep surfaces. Yeah. And so that's how kind of the Dustless Blasting portion came to be, by allowing people to use a multitude of abrasives with a wet mix inside of the blast pot, so that it was a much more efficient and effective system. Yeah. But what it allows still everyone to do is to use products to basically make sure that prepping your surface, which is the ultimate in everything you're about to do, is done the proper way. Yeah. And that's what this is.
And so for people who are like, soda blasting, what is that? So, just to give you guys more on really what the equipment is capable of. The equipment is a media blasting machine. It's not dry ice. And so it's not a pressure washer. We'll go over that a little bit later. But what you're using is an abrasive material inside this blast pot. And our blast pot is actually capable of removing just about any coating from any surface with with these materials. And our system can be used to dry blast, to soda blast, and to wet blast.
That's right.
Which is a game changer, because if you start looking at other machines on the market, you're going to see that some do one and some do another. With this, we're giving you one system for you to make the decision, what is best for my customers. And so you'll be taking on a wide variety of jobs with this one equipment, and you'll be offering these services at a very, very premium price, because it is it is very cost effective to restore rather than to replace. And so let's talk more about the equipment options that we offer, because there are quite a few.
Yeah, there are.
Let's start with the blast pots.
So that is, our tried and true. It started with blast pots. That is the main, these are ASME certified pressure vessels. They are highly scrutinized to make sure that they are safely built.
Yes.
We exceed all of those safety and building requirements. Hence the reason we can offer a lifetime warranty on these vessels, because we go above and beyond for the integrity of the way they're made.
Absolutely.
And so with that, it all started with a blast pot in a variety of sizes, just based on the type of, length of time that you're going to be blasting on. Something, very small, it's going to be a smaller pot. If you're talking a ship barge, it's going to be something larger. But we were always able to come in with the right size for the right job at the right price with our blast pots. And then those evolved into our compressor-ready cart systems and our mobile blasting trailers, all-inclusive and turnkey systems that we offer.
And so if you're someone who's like, oh, I think a blast pot might be right for me, definitely call one of our sales reps. They'll be able to match you with a piece of equipment, but also make sure you have access to an air compressor, because all of our blasting systems will require an air compressor and a certain size air compressor to pressurize that vessel and make sure you are getting, the performance that you want.
That's right.
And that goes the same for our compressor ready carts. And so the mobiles, they actually come turnkey with everything. Single thing you would need to be fully operable, to go where the work is, to go to that homeowner or to that business who can't take whatever they need restored to a shop.
That's right. That was the biggest thing, was that the ability to put somebody into a business to do something that was a large need. Contractors can't always have this product on hand. They need somebody, they're usually outsourcing it to a service provider, but that service provider, like you said, was usually in some type of brick and mortar or a shop setting and not able to get out into the infrastructure that is being built around them. So from this perspective, we're talking about residences. They can't bring their home to you, or their sidewalk, or their patio, or their fence. You've got to be able to go to them. Same thing in the commercial and construction world. These buildings, line stripe, all the graffiti, the coatings, all the things. Being able to be portable and get to them in a mobile setting was just kind of a brand new way to look at utilizing a sandblasting system and put it out into a community that just hadn't been done before.
And I know what everyone's thinking. They're like, okay, ladies, get to the price. Get me to the good stuff. So there were about 200 of you who submitted questions, and about 200 of you asked for pricing. So, our blast pots do start at around $6,000, and they go up in their size and their price. And then our mobile blasting trailers start at $38,000, and we do offer financing. We will go over financing in the Q&A session, because there were a lot of good questions on that. If you're looking for a quote, you can contact a sales rep. They'd be happy to, go over every individual price of all of our systems, but that's the starting range for you to kind of get your head around. Now we're going to move into the business opportunity, which is awesome. So if you're someone who is more of like a DIY hobbyist, and maybe you were like, okay, I wanted to know more about the blast pots. We have a blast pot buying guide on our website, and you can also talk to a sales rep. But right now we're going to move into more of the startup related stuff, because that's where a lot of y'all's questions were.
Right.
So low startup. Let's talk about that, the price of this. So, if you want to buy one of our mobile blasting units, turnkey with everything you need, the starting price is $38,000 for our smallest unit, and then those go up in pricing based on the equipment that's mounted on there. Comparing this to a franchise model is wild. I'd love to put up some of those prices, just because you'll see that the expense that's needed to start this business is significantly lower. I think I was looking into starting like a dog grooming or something franchise, and I was like, wow, cannot afford that. Cannot afford that.
I mean, the sandwich shops, we've other restoration types of companies that are franchise based. No, it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and continual commitment, profit sharing. There's, fees, royalties. There's, you're forced to buy into procuring some of their very branded products.
Yeah.
And it's just a completely different structure from what we are able to provide, which is a franchise-like opportunity, because we've done so much with our brand recognition to be known and understood in the surface prep industry.
Yeah.
But we don't charge you to contribute to that.
Yeah.
It's just an opportunity for you to know that you are operating with a very professional system that does the job. And you're not going to have to be charged for that. Yeah. Everything you make is what you get to keep.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about resources later, but also, just because you purchase the equipment from us and start your business, we are still going to be here to hold your hand throughout the entire process and really assist you wherever you need.
Right.
So let's talk about earning potential.
Yeah.
This is a fun one because everyone wants to know, okay, seriously, how much can I make in a year? So I'm going to give you a few talking points, but then we're going to go over how to bid jobs a little bit later. But for starters, you need to know that on average, most of our business owners are charging about $300 an hour. They do usually set a minimum for, if a job's only going to take 1 hour, they'll tell the customer, well, I'm not starting up my machine for less than X, Y, Z.
Right.
So, that's a good hourly mark. And a lot of new business owners stick to that hourly mark in the beginning while they're learning how to bid jobs in other ways. So just keep that number in mind until we get to the bidding job section. But let's talk about, some of those low operating costs. So, people always want to know about profit. What expenses can they expect when they're going to a job?
Well, beyond the investment, which it truly is an investment in the machine, because the machine gives you a direct ROI based on the job that you're about to go out and get.
Yeah.
And so after you've invested in that machine, media and fuel basically become your true daily consumables. Yep. How far away is that job that you're going to? How much, fuel am I going to take to get there? Is the job going to be a 3-hour, 5-hour, 8-hour, multi-day?
Yeah.
How much fuel is going to be going into the compressor? Those are your biggest operating costs, the media choice that you're going to be working with. We'll cover media and abrasives in a little bit too, but those can vary anywhere from, $10 for a 50-pound bag up to, probably $70 or $80, depending on what you're doing. But it's I would say probably 80% of what can be done can be used more with that $10, per bag price. So it really is limited in daily operating costs. Yeah. It isn't, just this high thing where you're needing 15 different elements.
Sure.
A nozzle, the hose comes with the machine. You're not going to wear it out on the daily basis, but media and fuel are kind of your consistent, how much you're going to go through and burn through in a day.
Yeah. And so just so you know, most of our guys use a crushed glass media. We'll go over media a little bit later. But for crushed glass, an hourly cost is about $50. So that's what you can expect for media. For fuel, if you get one of our very popular machines, our 500S model, that machine uses 1.5 gallons of fuel per hour. So those are your operating costs that you can write down and just expect to know up front.
And a lot of our examples that we'll do today are based on this 500 model. Our 500 blast pot is pretty much are kind of tried and true. It's the most popular. It kind of meets everybody halfway. It's not too big, but it's not too small. And within that, we'll probably touch base on it more a little bit as we go through. But when you're filling, we mentioned you're putting water and media in our blast pot at the same time to operate it. So it is 4 bags of media and 20 gallons of water incorporated inside of the blast pot. And that gives you 1 hour's worth of run time. And that is how you will then start calculating your daily operating expense based on the run time of the unit that you are procuring.
Yeah. And keep in mind, you're going to go through a car in about 4 hours. So just keep in mind, you're going to get a lot done in that hour, in that 1 hour. Let's see some real job examples. I think we have some case studies ready to go. So we just wanted to kind of show you what the operating costs are on some jobs. We know not all of you are doing log home restoration, but just to show you, he did 2,000 square feet in about 2 days, and he only spent a little over $500 on his operating costs. And so his total profit was almost $7,500 for that job. I think we have one more for graffiti, which is a fun one. And we'll talk about applications in a little bit, but graffiti removal is such a profitable, option for you. And graffiti is everywhere. So this guy was actually here. He was in Houston, and we got to go. Yeah, we got to go film and take these photos for ourselves and watch him. And so, he was removing not only graffiti, he was removing paint and a lot of other, coatings from this 5-story building. But it wasn't just brick. It was brick and wood and concrete. And so because of all those different variables, he ended up charging $3,000 per day.
And I'm sure we'll find some additional examples as we go through this, because that is part of it, and how you'll foresee, when we talk about how you're going to get jobs. The prime example of this, there's a multitude of surfaces within this one building that you're operating on. So you can quickly see how you might have started this job with the graffiti, aspect in mind, but it quickly turned into being able to blast on concrete and brick, which then will lead you into a completely different industry that you are now capable of, generating business for. Word of mouth comes into play, and things like that. We'll touch base on a lot of that down the road, but this gives you a little glimpse into just how quickly you can think you're focused on one industry and you end up in several, and that's how your business ends up growing.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so there's one thing before, a lot of you guys had asked for testimonies. And so in just a second, we're going to play a video from a few of our business owners who we got to sit down and interview over the years after they'd been in business for themselves. We're going to let you hear from them directly. But the main takeaways here, if you were to ask me, Kaylin, why would I move forward with Dustless Blasting over any other franchise? And it would be because of the low startup, because of how much opportunity is everywhere around you, no matter your location, your low operating costs, but also because we're not, a true franchise, we're never going to demand anything of you that you don't want to do. It's truly your business. You purchase the equipment, you run it how you see fit, and we're just here to help you along the way.
That's right. You make out of it what you put into it. If, some people are weekend warriors, some people are, it is their full-time and everything job. But how many hours is what, is a comfortable amount of hours for you? Is it 4 or is it 64? It's a big difference.
All right, let's hear from some of our customers throughout the years, and so you guys can just see what they had to say about being in business.
The one I bought was 800, and I never even did my first job with it, and I got a contract. The first contract we signed was for $2.5 million. And we went in to visit them. We got another contract. The one I'm getting today is $3,000. Once we pay it off, we're coming back for 2 more big ones. To be honest, I want to build it up huge within the next 3 years and cash out in 5. I'm the boss. I'm not making somebody else rich again. I've made lots of people rich. Now it's my turn.
I came upon Dustless Sander, and I'm like, what is this? Dustless, how is this possible? YouTube videos after YouTube videos of removing epoxy. So I'm over here thinking, all right. But me, I'm pessimistic. YouTube videos, who's editing these things? I have to come down. So I took the trip down from New York. Here I am at the factory, and I'm blasting things like it owes me money. And I'm having fun. And the guy's wearing a white jacket. He didn't even get dirty. And he's standing 5 feet from me. I'm not dirty. And the way this stuff was self-contained, it's dropped right to the ground. No plumes of smoke anywhere. It's done. We're buying the DB800, and that's it. Let's get the ball rolling.
I honestly don't know what to do. My problem is not getting my business. My problem is keeping up with the business. I've got to buy more equipment. I can't. I mean, the amount of business that I've got off one DB500 XL is ridiculous.
Alrighty, so if you are someone who's like, all right, Kaylin, look, I like what I see. What are some next steps that I can actually take to maybe see if this is the right decision for me?
Yeah.
So first, I would tell you to do some market research, talk to a sales rep, or just go on our website and see what all the machine is capable of, and we're going to go over that with you right now. So let's look at a few different applications. We don't have time to go over every single one, but here are a few surfaces that you can blast with our equipment and coatings you can remove. So you'll see, you know, the wood, the metal, brick, stone, concrete, fiberglass, aluminum, and then all the different coatings that you can remove. And this is possible because our machine, we already talked about kind of, it uses a variety of medias that do different things, but also our machine has, you know, adjustable pressure settings. So you can turn down that PSI when you're blasting something soft like wood, and you can crank that up when you're trying to remove powder coating. So it is kind of a one-trick pony, if you will, in that regard.
It's great because what it allows you to do is remove lots of different, you know, coatings that are on these variable surfaces kind of on the fly. If you're on that, just like we consider that brick building, you know, when that guy was on the exterior removing some of that graffiti, he was probably more in that, you know, 70 PSI range, maybe 70 to 90, but he got on concrete and he needed to be at 120 to 150.
Right.
And those are all kind of things that as you get used to your blasting process, you'll get the feel for what that, you know, PSI looks like and how aggressive you're being and not aggressive. But I want to point out just how different that is from pressure washing, which is such high pressure. You're probably used to seeing something more in that 4,000 plus PSI range.
Yeah.
At the same time, also using an extreme quantity of water because you're usually plugged into a hose, and also at the same time incorporating heat. And we're doing almost directly the opposite.
Yeah.
We've limited the amount of water to 20 gallons over the period of an hour, which is never going to give you runoff while you're in blasting. It is not going to create a stream or a flow of water. It is going to contain the particulates, and it is going to drop basically at your feet.
Which is important for my friends in California.
Yeah.
Because that definitely matters.
Containment is going to be a thing. We'll definitely touch on that also, but I just want you to understand the variation of power that comes from more of the air than it does from the force of the media or the high pressure that is coming out of that. So you're saving there. And then another thing that the heating element that we use is almost a cooling element.
Yeah.
So when we talk about types of coatings that are on things, some things could be, when we're talking about dirty, greasy, grimy, which heating up is going to become gooey and messy. We're going to cool it down about 20 degrees below ambient and start with something that is now going to get harder, brittle, and flake away and fly off a heck of a lot easier.
Yeah.
So with that, it's just a vast difference, and I kind of want you to understand. You know, now it starts to make a little bit of sense. Pressure washing is always going to have its place. You know, you're removing, you know, stuff off of your concrete. You want to pressure wash the side of the siding on a vinyl siding home.
Yeah.
Pressure washing all day long. But if we're really trying to create some type of a profile that is going to allow a next coating to come into play, then you want to make sure that it is going to be appropriately done so that that coating stays on for its intended length of time.
Yeah, I'll say I talk to a lot of pressure washing companies daily who use this system as an add-on equipment. So they, you know, because they do serve completely different purposes. It is great to incorporate both in your business if you can. So let's see some real job examples. I know we talked about coatings and surfaces, but what that kind of means. So, you know, you'll see things like residential jobs and patio resurfacing, pool cleaning, driveway restoration. You can even remove paint from brick homes, siding, wood siding, things like that. Fire restoration is huge and very profitable. And then the log home maintenance that we saw earlier. And then there's also the commercial and industrial side of things that I'll let you guys read off. But a really cool thing is that when you come and talk to a sales rep, and if you already have an idea of what you're interested in, it helps us pair you with, you know, a machine that's best for you.
Right.
All of our machines are capable, but if you told me, hey, Kaylin, I'm only going to be doing small furniture restoration, well, then I'm not going to quote you for our largest mobile system.
Right.
So that just helps when, you jump on a phone call to just kind of thinking, what you're interested in.
Yeah, because it's kind of a misnomer. A lot of people, especially here in Texas, think bigger is better, and that isn't always the case. And we want to, as I mentioned before, we kind of have something that is price aligned for your budget, or your, what you want to put into it for an investment. Because all of our machines are capable, you're going to get that return. And so with that, being able to do some of these, things, I just get that glimpse of, once you find out where you have an interest, it kind of lets you see what are those areas. So if you really are a pool guy and pools, then now you start seeing, oh, with the pool, I could do this, this, or the other. If you're a car guy, you're like, oh my gosh, I am in restoration. I could be doing that body panel. I can be doing that chassis.
Yeah.
You start to kind of see things fall into place to what makes sense. So we always suggest you having an idea of a niche, of something that resonates with you.
Yeah.
Is it, general contracting? Is it woodworking? Is it, what is it? And because that will lead you for your direct place to start. And as again, we showed with that building example, could lead to a whole potential of other tangent jobs that you could potentially win.
Yeah, I'll say people who are the most, I won't say most successful, but people who are really successful are kind of already passionate about something.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. Some people are just passionate about making money, and that is totally fine. But some people, have a passion for cars, or they know someone, their dad was a truck driver, so that's sentimental, and so they get into fleet maintenance. So, tapping into things that already interest you, or you have some sort of, sentiment to, is always, it makes it feel less like work.
That's right. And we do have hobbyists that come back with, machines that they're like, my grandfather did this, and I want to do it too. And, and now the great thing is that you can turn a hobby into a business, and a very profitable one at that. So, I'm excited to get to these questions as we go through here, because I think it's going to really share what the potential is.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say about services you can offer is you don't just have to offer blasting services.
That's
you
right.
can be the one-stop shop. So if you get hired to blast that car, well, you can hook your paint gun up to your mobile, and you can prime and paint and be on your way.
Yeah.
So a lot of people find that super attractive, and then you've just made a ton of more money by offering that service as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's talk about getting customers. That was a very popular question. So now you've thought about what services are available to offer and what might interest you. So now it's time to really start thinking about, who am I going to talk to? What I would absolutely recommend, if you walk away hearing nothing else, is thinking about doing digital marketing, and starting with having somebody create a website for you, because you're not a storefront that people can stumble upon. And these days, everybody is Googling everything. I mean, I Google things before I go to my doctor's appointment, so I know people are Googling everything.
Yeah, I do.
So launch a website, and then the next thing that all of the business owners that I follow up with recommend is running search Google ads.
Google ads are important.
And that is because when you create a website, Google has to crawl your website in order for it to start serving people your website who are searching for these services. Well, it takes a few months for your SEO or your organic traffic to kind of ramp up. And so in that first 6 months of business, investing in Google ads is the best way to put your business out in front of people who are Googling for automotive restoration, paint removal from my brick home. You want to be the one that pops up there.
Right.
And because of this, we have partnered with a third-party marketing team called Digital Assembly. They are linked on our website. They will create a custom website for you. They'll go over their offerings, which include Google ads. But also the thing that makes them most attractive to us and why we chose them to partner with is because they have a ton of clients in the abrasive blasting industry. In fact, that's one of their areas of expertise. So they know what services you're offering, they know about the industry, and they know what to put on your website. So you can book a call with them even before you have your machine. You could book a call and see if you can get your marketing going.
And it is important to start thinking about that beforehand, because a lot of people, have come to us in the past and they pick up their machine and then they're ready to, get to work as soon as they get back. But then they are like, but wait, I didn't do my, research on seeing who my first job was going to be, and why is my website not showing up first? And there's a lot to it, and I know it can be overwhelming for some, so that's why this partnership with Digital Assembly is such a wonderful affiliation. It kind of takes the guesswork out of it for you. If, as Kaylin said, SEO, and you're like, what the heck is that? Then going to an agency like this that can help you get your website prepared and get your Google ads to promote your business established is, priceless.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you have somebody in your family, if you've got a 5-year-old who can build a website, because some of them can now, utilize that. But don't waste time in establishing, that, so that it has time to grow and crawl, as we say, so that your area and your community can know you're there.
Yeah.
And then social media is absolutely where it's at as well. If you are providing services, get pictures, put them on Facebook, put them on Instagram.
Yes.
Because that's the other place that some of, generationally speaking, your clients aren't always going to be in your specific age demographic. Some people might still use Facebook, even if we think it might be, getting outdated or whatever.
I'm looking you up on Facebook.
Yeah, you wanna make sure you're everywhere that all of these customers will be, and Facebook is a good one because that is where I go. I check them out, see what kind of pictures do they have, what were the results of, if they repainted a house or did whatever it was.
For sure.
So you want to have that backing you, just to prove your legitimacy of business, and the skill of your work, and be proud to display that. But at the same time, it is actually going to support you in just really shoring up that your business is a good one.
Yeah. And then outside of marketing, what are some things you can do to get customers? Contact local businesses.
Yes.
There are so many businesses in need of this service, and I can tell you they're either doing it by hand with a grinder, they're using a chemical. Both of these options take forever, or they're outsourcing all their sandblasting needs. And a lot of times I hear people call me and they're like, Kaylin, my sandblaster is so booked. He cannot get to me for 2 weeks, and I need to get this thing done. So, it's an urgent situation. So contact marinas, contact the pool companies, get on a subcontractor list.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this, powder coaters usually outsource all their sandblasting needs. One of our business owners who I got the chance to talk to after he'd been in business a while said his first year of work, he called a local powder coater and signed a contract with him, and it provided him a year's worth of work.
Yeah.
Insurance companies, automotive shops, anything that's painted, rusted, or dirty, just think about that and what businesses might need your services.
And people are doing that a little proactively as well. We also do provide, aside from the digital thing, you're going to still need something tangible, something that these people can hold.
Yeah.
And so getting your business cards printed, getting some type of trifold information about the services you're going to provide.
Yeah.
Get that vehicle magnet early on. Get that, yard sign, or to place in your own yard, even to let people know you're doing it. But we found that actual visual context,
Truck wraps,
vinyl wrapping your truck has been so game changing for so many of our contractors. But visibility out in your community is what is going to get you that business, and you do have to be at the forefront of that. Sometimes we've had people load their, they have like a slide deck or something on their iPad. They'll take the iPad with them and approach a business and just be like, can I just show you what I have to offer?
Yeah.
And let's talk about, are you outsourcing this? I can be your main person. I can come to you. You don't have to ship the product to my facility. And it really opens up that communication. But I think you'll find that this is as she mentioned, a resource that is absolutely needed, because the limited number of people that are doing this are not able to keep up with the amount of work that is available.
Yeah, absolutely. So once you've identified your interests, you know what Dustless Blasting can do. You have booked a call with Digital Assembly, or you have someone doing your marketing. Let's talk about equipment. That's really what comes next. So I would recommend you calling a sales rep who will have a discovery call with you, understand your needs, your budget, your towing capacity, and your business goals, and really make this a personalized experience. They'll generate a quote for you, review your quote, and then go through with the rest of the process. But let's talk about determining a budget. So we don't just have one mobile.
Right.
We have what, like
Many.
6, 7? We have like 6 or 7 mobiles. And so all are priced differently. And if you're like, Kaylin, I don't want to talk to anyone, I want to go look at this right now, I'm gonna help you out. All of the main difference between each mobile trailer, a few things: the size, so that's where your towing capacity comes into play, but the size air compressor that's mounted on there. Your air compressor just allows you to complete jobs more quickly.
Yeah.
So if you're someone who is wanting to start out in more residential jobs, not big commercial government jobs that require a fast timeline, then one of our smaller units might be more appropriate for you.
Right.
So just keep that in mind when you're looking at that. But again, our smallest unit is $38,000. One size up from that is about $48,000, $49,000. And then one size up from that's about $65,000. And we offer financing on all of these units.
And keep in mind, when you reach out to a sales rep, it's more to help gain an understanding of what it is that you're doing, because we're not here to talk you into the most expensive thing we had. It's what I tried to mention earlier. It's appropriately sized for your budget. Our machines are going to do the same thing in just a variation of time and efficiency, but they're all capable of the same thing. So you don't have to feel like, unless I'm all in, for $70,000, I can't do this. That is not the case at all.
Yeah.
And utilizing that small mobile allows you to get you quickly in and out of places. I mean, they all have such grand advantages and things that work for them as to why it's acceptable and appropriate to have that. You're never going to really feel undersized for your job unless you really are trying to use something that small on a barge. You can still do it. It just might take you a week instead of a day. And that's the kind of comparison we want to make sure you understand, because the faster you can get a return on your ROI of what you've initially invested through this machine is the quicker that you'll find that you might need that second one.
Yeah.
And that's how the scalability of this goes. And I know we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but I just want you to have that in the back of your mind that, think about your budget, because that is what drives what you're about to invest in. And that is absolutely okay with us. We just want to make sure you're right sized for what it is that you have an interest in doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously look at your truck's towing capacity.
Yes.
We don't want you to have to buy a new truck if you want to, and great. But you'll be able to see all of the weights and dimensions of each of our trailers online as well. So look that over and just see what your truck can handle. But I will say the last thing about our mobiles is our 2 smallest mobiles can fit in a standard size garage.
Yes.
So if you're wanting a place to store it, those are two good options for you. Okay, let's see. What is next? We have, after that, you'll purchase your equipment. Usually the turnaround time for equipment is like one week for a mobile. And then after that, you're on your way, but you are not on your way alone. You should be aware of the resources available to you. My favorite one is our contractor group. So we have created a private Facebook group for all of our business owners to get in and interact with. But the cool thing is they all post their upcoming jobs, and they say, hey guys, I've never had a job like this before. What would you be at price-wise? How long do you think it's going to take me?
Yeah.
And so you can use this as a database to search for any upcoming project you have, and feel confident about how you're bidding the job based on what others have done. People also share before and after pictures. It's a really great resource that we're proud of.
It's an incredible resource. It's incredible because when you come in either to pick up your machine or you come in for that demonstration, you're going to get a complete A to Z walkthrough, and it may seem overwhelming. And that's just because it's a lot of information being thrown at you very quickly. But some of the beauty about our machines is their ease of use, and I know we'll chat about that in the Q&As, but it's really easy to utilize, and so I don't want you to be afraid of that. But when you come in and I say that it's just a lot of information, but you're going to fly home, you're going to be excited, you're going to be thinking about the jobs, and then the machine's going to arrive and you're going to be like, now what was I told that day? And so we have just tons of videos, tons of Academy information that will support what you were just told. You also will get lots of follow-up emails that give you lots of links to all the different videos, a little kind of recap about everything that you were taught while you were here.
Yeah.
And so that's always an amazing resource. But we always say that we're probably going to be your best friend for about the first 3 months of ownership with this machine.
Absolutely.
And that's because there's always a lot of questions and we want to set you up for success the right way. But between us and this contractors group, as we mentioned, they are always posting pictures because not everything is very straightforward. And you'll come across things that are just like, I mean, just incredible fixtures. I mean, metal's going everywhere. And you're like, what is this thing and how do I ever think about pricing it? And being able to get input from those who have been in this business now for, 10 plus years, it's just invaluable.
Yeah. And so the resource that Jennifer was talking about, our academy, hosts all of our how-to videos from how to start up your machine, how to price jobs. And so that is a resource that's available to you now if you want to go look at that. And then your hands-on demonstration is an option. You can come here if you're like, I don't believe what these crazy ladies are saying.
Right.
I want to see this for myself.
100%.
You can do that. You can fly out to Houston and see us. We do demos Monday through Friday. And you can also, if you don't feel like a demonstration is necessary, you can also come down and pick up your machine in person to do a demo. So you have a lot of options there. And then Lewis is featured in this photo. He is our someone on our tech support team, so you'll be given his direct line for questions about servicing your pot. Which is something I don't think we've mentioned yet, but when we go into maintenance costs, just know that you will never have to hire a service technician for these blast pots. They're very easy to maintain, and you can find all the information in our academy, or Lewis can, talk you through it over the phone. So you pretty much have everything that you need up front, and then us as a resource afterwards.
You are definitely not alone. That's what our, biggest tagline is: be in business for yourself, but not by yourself.
Absolutely.
And we stand true to that today. It's been our, reason this entire time. This company was founded on entrepreneurial spirit, and we thrive on that and want to help you succeed. So
Yeah.
we have a lot of good resources for it.
Definitely. Okay, so we're about to get into the Q&A, but next steps, if, once you review all this information, kind of let it marinate, and you're like, let's go, Kaylin, I'm ready to talk equipment, now would be the time to call one of our experts and just have a discovery call with them and see which equipment might be best for you. Conduct that market research, decide on a marketing package, request a quote from our sales rep, and then if you need to apply for financing, you can do that once you have a quote, or you can, pay with other means. So.
Yeah. And I just, reiterate that don't be afraid to call into that line to speak to a salesperson, because as I mentioned, it's not a pressure sale kind of situation. It's more of a making sure you're right sized for your amount of investment, to make sure you're getting what you are interested in that really is going to help you build that business that you're after.
Absolutely. Okay, Q&A. Let's go. Favorite part. Okay, we have a lot to cover, so let's dive in. What is first? Galardi, can you? Let's pull up some of these questions. All right. What is the demand for the service in my area? So we've kind of touched on this a little bit. And so we have a guide for you that is linked in the comment section. It's on that landing page. It's called the demand in my area. So you can actually click that and see all of the different services you can offer. But what we say is if anything is painted, rusted, or dirty, it's there. We have several guys who, have operated around another. And so, I have one guy that I've talked to who only does pools. He got connected with a pool company who was using grinders for every single job. It was taking them like 2 weeks to do a pool, which is outrageous. And so he called them up and he was like, hey, what are you using for this? Got connected with them. And then they landed him like 3 years worth of work. Yeah. So every job that he got called about, he was like, I'm so sorry, I'm booked. And he's posting in the contractor group like, hey, can anyone do this car? Can anyone do this, concrete job? And so the demand really is kind of everywhere.
And that's another beauty about that Facebook group too, is because there are guys who often say, I got a phone call from somebody, but they're an hour and a half away and I don't drive that far. Or, they're in the state, but, completely on the different side of the, the state. and they're great about that. And when we get calls internally, we do the same thing. We post in the group, hey, who's in the XX area? You know, we've got a lead for you. So there's always demand that can pop up that way. But I say, you know, look around your own area and see. Think about it, how many different, you know, painters, home painters there are. When you call, there's 50 of them.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of demand, always need for restoration, you know, rehabilitation of all kinds of things. We have a lot of people that do historic things, historic trains, historic cannons, historic, I mean, all the sculptures, the statues, all of these things are getting renovated. Oh yeah, headstones. There's a ton of demand that I think for the most part you don't even realize is a demand. And I go back to my fire hydrant guy.
Oh, I love the fire hydrants.
Yeah. Who knew there was a guy who had, I mean, tell me how many he had. He had hundreds in this, just his one city.
And it took him like 30 minutes to do to do a fire hydrant.
Prep, removal, let it dry, and then he's throwing paint on him, which is the other thing we mentioned before. So you don't just have to end on stripping it. You can go back and put on that additional coating and just be A to Z, one-stop shop. And you've got money on the stripping side and you've got money on the application side. Yep. So it's a win-win situation for you. But demand is where you look for it because it is there.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, what financing is available and what are the requirements? Jennifer, do you want to take this one?
Sure. With financing internally, the way most equipment financing works is it is just called that. It's called an equipment finance agreement. You actually have to be an established business, and by that I mean you have to have filed with your Secretary of State and have a business name in place. And most companies that are writing for that are looking at for you as the individual who is applying to be the personal guarantor for that business. So you do have to apply with your own personal credit, and therefore they're usually looking for something in that 600 plus range to get you the best rates that are available at the time. Yeah. So what do they consider time in business is at least 2 years active time in business to get those best rates. We're not saying that you wouldn't qualify being a brand new startup, as we understand that most of you are. Yeah. But a lot of people end up having an affiliation to a business that they just no longer have as active, but they're able to affiliate it. And with that affiliation, it helps reduce the amount of premium in interest rate that you're paying. Yeah. But that's just one option. As an existing business, usually your options are a little, broader. But as Caitlin mentioned, using an outside source, a credit union, a straight personal loan, because again, your investment potentially initially and for the majority of our individuals is under that $50,000 mark. Yep. Most people can kind of get some type of side loan or use their own personal equity. We always say your own money is your best money to utilize, and it's a return that you can get rather quickly with no interest at that point. So there are a few things to do. We just always encourage you to apply. We do a soft pull on that credit initially, so it's not going to really hurt anything for you, but at least it gives you an understanding of kind of where you are in the equipment finance industry. Yeah. And then you can kind of make a decision from there whether or not that's the, appropriate way for you to go.
Yeah. People always ask me, Caitlin, what's my monthly payment going to be? Right. Well, I can't give you that. It's all based on your finance application. So the best way to know what that monthly payment is to get pre-approved online because the interest rates right now vary so much. The down payment right now varies so much. The lowest I've seen is 10%, but that does not mean that you'll get that 10%. So I usually, tell my contacts to just go ahead and get pre-approved, and if you don't like the rates, shop around and see what else is out there.
That's right. It's the best way to do it.
Okay, maintenance costs. So this one we had a lot of questions about, and this one is also very tricky. So when we kind of already talked about earlier that you are going to be able to service your blast pot. You'll never have to hire a service technician, which is very important because there are others on the market that you're having to spend thousands of dollars to have somebody come out and service your machine, and that is not the case here. Right. So you'll be referencing our academy. You'll be calling our technical support to walk you through how to change some of these wear parts. It's very easy. I can do it. And so let's talk about some of those. So we do have a set of wear parts. Now, how quickly these get worn out depends on a lot of things. Right. So it depends on if you're wet blasting or if you're dry blasting, because dry blasting is always going to wear out your parts faster. And so we did an estimation based on if you were wet blasting half the time and dry blasting half the time, because that's what most of our customers are doing. And so with that estimation, you would be replacing those maybe every 6 months. Again, I've seen people replace them every 2 years. I've seen people replace them every 2 months. Totally depends on what media you're using in the pot as well. If you're using a super hard, aggressive media, it's going to wear them out faster.
And what that doesn't tell you is the number of hours that you blast. I mean, when we say maybe in that 6 month increment, we're talking about running that thing for 8 to 10 hours a day, all day, every day, hundreds of hours. Most people, that's how we are getting to that 1 and 2 year time frame that most people are usually doing this.
Yeah.
We're just suggesting that worst case scenario, this is what you would be looking at, because in all honesty, a nozzle could last you, again, it's based on your blast hours. You may never have to replace that. It could last you 2, 5, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because they never really break. They don't even wear out. When they wear out, the orifice size of that nozzle actually just
Gets
grows.
bigger.
So when I send you a number 5 nozzle, it's just going to turn into a number 6. Does that mean it doesn't work anymore? No, but it means you might start losing efficiency in the speed that you were removing the coating before. So these are all kind of just how it pertains to you, how efficient you want to be, and what more you want to invest in it. The wear parts and the pinch hose. The pinch hose is a safety mechanism, and I highly suggest that you all are always, making sure we're alternating that. It is a primary safety feature on our blast pot. And it's about an 18 to 20 inch section of hose that gets rotated about every 10 to 15 use hours. You get 4 rotations out of 1 hose, and then we send it with 3 spares already.
Yep.
So you are not going to probably be asking us for any more hose for quite some time.
Yeah.
And then the internals, obviously, these are kind of indicators that you'll see when the flow of media starts kind of acting a little bit different. You're not seeing that rate of removal as high. Then we start looking at wear parts. And what we're proud of is the really inexpensive wear part items that we have. And they were very intentionally structured to be wear parts so that the main component, which is hundreds of dollars for one piece, isn't sacrificed. These wear parts are the sacrificial parts.
Yeah. And
they're a heck of a lot cheaper than having to replace the primary item. So that's why our pots are really designed to be easily maintained, last a really long time.
Lifetime warranty,
and give you the results that you're after. So when we talk about, other pots being out there, we've had tech support people work for us in the past that were field technicians, and they would go out in the field and be like, I see a blue one, I see a white one, I see all these colors out there. Why do I never see a green one?
Yeah.
And it's because ours are just so much simpler to use. Our control box mechanism for either an electric system or a pneumatic system, you can open it and anybody, a toddler, could understand the 2 or 3 hoses that are in there. You open up the control boxes on some of these others and it is like a science project gone wrong, and you in the field would not be able to understand what it was that you needed to fix or repair.
Yeah. I had a guy who, and I will mention that these wear parts, I have put all of our wear parts and added up the price of all of them. So we have a few different wear parts. I just threw them all in there. So it's not $350 for one part. It's for several parts in a kit. Yeah. But I talked to somebody who had been in the coatings industry for like 30 years. He had used just about every machine known to man. And he stuck with ours, which was funny because he was in Alaska. And he said, the reason is because I'm out here in the wild, wild west. I don't get parts sent to me quickly. I cannot service an overly intricate machine out here in Alaska. Like, there's no way.
Right.
And so, for maintenance was one of the reasons that he said that he really loved our system.
Yeah, we just make it so simple. The hoses, I mean, you can, if something happens, you can cut a small piece of that off while you're out in the field, replace your coupling, and you're back in business.
Yeah.
There's just not too many components that, like I said, are going to create in the blast pot create you to have to make a service call of any kind.
Yeah.
It's usually a how-to, which we can't reiterate enough. The fact that Lewis he's usually going to text you a video, and those videos are all available in the academy that we mentioned earlier. So just understanding the how to do this. How do I, grease my Parker valve? How do I change my elbow insert? It's a few minimal things, but all of it has a video to explain it to make it easier for you while you're in the field to do this.
And so if you're getting a mobile unit from us, the second piece of this is the air compressor.
Mm-hmm.
The air compressor is the only piece of the mobile that we don't manufacture in-house. And so this does need to be serviced. I've put kind of like worst case scenario pricing on here and how many hours you would need to service this, but you'll see the 500-hour maintenance kit, the air oil separator filter, and the compressor oil, but that's a 2.5 gallon jug.
Right.
But let's talk about maybe compressor maintenance and how that's important.
Yeah, well, a compressor, just like your car, it absolutely needs to be maintained. And even more importantly than your car, because this one is your business, you want to make sure that you're doing it properly. You want to make sure this is daily checks, weekly checks, and monthly checks. If you're in a blasting, situation, you're really putting these compressors to task because of the environment that you're in. So there are a few simple things that you can do, to make sure you're utilizing the machine appropriately. And that would be to make sure that when you're running it, the canopy's closed. It's not open to experience. If you're, 200 feet away, which is where 100 feet to 200 feet away, don't be blasting right beside your air compressor.
Right.
You're just going to allow a lot of that media to get inside of it, and you don't want that to happen. So be cognizant of where you're parking it. Be cognizant of in what direction you're blasting. Don't keep it. Keep it upwind, not downwind of where all of your media is coming in. So it's just things like that I think most people don't really consider. They're just like, oh, it's just back there and it fires up and it's running, and it will until the day it won't. And that's because a filter is dirty. The oil wasn't changed in a timely manner. Some of these compressors come with service minders on them. Some of them don't. So you really have to be the one to check it. Some of the filters are, they might say they last 500 hours, but if you've been out there blasting every single day for, 2 months on end and you've put 250 hours on it, you might still want to check it because you've been aggressively using it and you want to verify that the environment that you're blasting in, you've just done your due diligence in keeping those filters clean. Yeah. If you treat the compressor with the maintenance respect that it deserves, it will live a long time. I mean, most have a good 10, 15 year shelf life when maintained properly.
Yeah, they'll run all day as long as you're taking care of it. If you take care of it, it will take care of you.
And we do get a lot of feedback, and that is another thing. We have physically utilized practically every brand of compressor that there is. We've used Doosan, we've used Sullivan Pelletech, we've used CP, we've used LG, we've used Connex, we've used, the list goes on and on. So we've tried them all, and everyone has its ups and everyone has its, positives and negatives. But the biggest thing that comes into play is how has it been maintained? Yeah. Every, company that we talk to, it's like, I got pictures of this. The guy never changed the oil once in the 3 years he had it.
Yep.
And so it goes to, you are in charge of how well that thing works.
And I'd like to mention this wasn't a question, but if you see any of our systems on the used market, this is where you might have some issues. I actually had a very nice couple who had been working with a while who decided to buy used. They spent $30,000 on a machine and the compressor did not work after the first day of using it. Yeah. Not at all. Right. And the compressor is the most expensive piece of the equipment on your trailer. So just be mindful of that because it is very important.
Yeah. And it would be a good opportunity, are there any Q&As about that?
I don't think so.
To just say that, well, we might get to it in the how long people have been in business and whatnot, but we'll touch base on it. But yeah, it is a critical component. It's obviously essential to run the product, but in the construction world, a lot of people have the field use of them is, and that's why we have the compressor ready cart as an option too. Because if you're in a place where a rental of a compressor makes more sense, well, that takes the maintenance out of it for you.
Yeah.
And then you're really only worried or concerned with your lifetime warranty blast pot that's easy to fix in the, maintain in the field if needed at all. So keep that in mind, that there's an appropriate place for having this as the turnkey unit, and then there's the appropriateness for maybe just having something that's compressor ready where you're bringing in a rental type of compressor. Maybe it's week-long projects or something like that. And then you're not, you're out of the expense of the compressor maintenance, which is, the more expensive portion.
All right, what licenses are needed to run this business? So I get a lot of questions about this, and unfortunately, I wish I could be more helpful, but every state is different. Every county is different. I mean, even if you go on a random government job, they might have a license that you have to get. So, I would start off by researching your state requirements and seeing what that entails and going from there, because literally every single one is different.
And from the business perspective, pretty much everybody needs to be licensed, insured, and bonded.
Yep.
And with that, when you get your business insurance, you're generally looking at $1 million liability policy.
Yep.
And as you were mentioning, sometimes it's a government or a municipality. They might ask you to increase that. You might need a $2 million, but mostly people are getting this $1 million.
Yeah.
It's anywhere from maybe $900 to up to maybe $1,500 annually to have that policy in place. And then that just allows you to operate in business. And then you're obviously getting your trailered unit as a vehicle insured. And then each license to actually do things from a coatings perspective, there isn't really a license that you need to remove paint or, well, I shouldn't say all paint. Lead paint, you'd need a special license for.
Absolutely.
Mold, you'll need a special license for. What was the other one? It was
Asbestos.
Asbestos, you definitely need a special license for. All of these things can be done utilizing our blaster. And why? Because of the incorporation of water in the blast pot. But then we talk about, specialty needs for containment and actually disposal. And that is where that licensing comes in. But as far as like general contracting work, if you're cleaning a sidewalk, etching anything, removing sealer from a deck or from wood or stained concrete, none of that would require a specialty license for most individuals, but just verify that with whatever city or municipality that you're in.
Yeah, there's only a few states that are really, really strict.
Yeah,
so,
it's usually California.
yeah. So just do that research yourself, because we're not going to
we can't do it for
every license.
And they change every other day too on top of it.
Okay, how do I find customers? I feel like we already talked about this, so reference the landing page that I know is in the comments section. There's a whole thing on how to get customers in case you're just now joining us, but definitely your marketing and going out to local businesses, getting the word out that way.
Yeah.
Ooh, fun. Is this business environmentally friendly, OSHA compliant?
Well, that touches a little bit on what we were just saying about, the incorporation of water into the blast pot really helps alleviate that. And I think you had a quote
so
from them.
I pulled a quote from OSHA, and I think it's linked there as well, but I just wanted to read this off to you guys. So their recommendation is to use abrasives that can be delivered with water to reduce dust, and that's exactly what our equipment is capable of doing. So OSHA is recommending to deliver that media with an abrasive blasting, wet abrasive blasting system. And then they obviously recommend eco-friendly medias. So sand is last season. Do not use sand.
Do not use.
It's cheap, but it is not good for you. There are so many better alternatives to sand, and they're going to make your projects faster, and you'll be able to work around other people on a job site or in a residential space safely and legally without using sand.
And you bring up the biggest and the best point. So even as I mentioned, our business started as a traditional sand blaster. What we have now moved into with Dustless Blasting is a wet abrasive blasting system. Those two words are not interchangeable. They are utilized across the industry as, oh, I'm going to be sandblasting today. Oh, I'm going to be sandblasting today. But the minute you talk about an environmental cause or getting insurance and you say I'm sandblasting,
scary.
Up go the rates and up go the red flags and the warnings and all the things. When you say that you're a wet abrasive blaster, a lot of that stigmatism comes off of that. Or stigma, I should say, comes off of that, and now you're back to, you know, being environmentally compliant. And so that is a big plus for the ability to utilize this machine. So many people say, I don't care, I still want to dry blast. My media that I'm choosing is still inert, non-toxic, it's okay to use. And it is, and that's great. But if the city that you're working within says, no, it needs to be wet, so much better than trying to introduce some wet ring at the nozzle end. You just lose your efficiency in doing that. Can it be done? Sure. But is it the efficient way to do it? Absolutely not. You want to have, there's a reason the water is incorporated in the pot, and that's for the efficiency of flow and your ability to keep a consistent water and media mix at all times. It's not being introduced anywhere else. And every time an introduction is happening with other systems, you are hitting a brick wall and slowing down the force of what was about to, you know, come out. And so our system allows you to be successfully to be able to do it the right way. So that's another important thing. But the compliance from OSHA, as we mentioned, comes from using an environmentally appropriate media and then incorporating water in the blasting process.
And something that that guy said that I mentioned earlier, he was in the coatings industry. He's been in it for like 30, 40 years. He was actually reached out to restore all of the Washington State ferries. You cannot do that dry. He said, Kaylin, if I would have been out there dry blasting, I would have had kayakers calling the EPA. You cannot have fugitive dust.
That's right.
And so there are some jobs where wet blasting is absolutely necessary, like concrete. Concrete has silica in it. You do not want to be dry blasting concrete.
I don't know that you can anymore. It's been that, you know, kind of restricted.
So there's a time and a place for everything, and we just want to give you the machine that does both.
That's right. Does it all and keeps you compliant.
Okay, what are your operating costs? We talked about this a little bit earlier, but I did want to have it written out on the screen. So if you're using a crushed glass media or an affordable abrasive, which there are so many on the market, but I used crushed glass in my example here just because so many people use that. So that would be about $50 an hour. Fuel, if you're using our most popular mobile, the 500S series, you'd be using about 1.5 gallons per hour. And then you would bid or you would charge the customer for travel expenses, containment, cleanup. People will tell you, you know, people have told me, Kaylin, I'm not cleaning up. I'm not doing it. I'm faster blasting than I am cleaning up. And so they will charge the customer like $250 for cleanup, and then they will outsource it. They don't want to deal with it. So you have that option as well, or if you'd rather charge the customer and keep the money for cleanup, great. A crew, I would say most people don't have to worry about that their first year in business, unless they're paying someone to answer the phones. Because most of the time, my guys who get into business new, they are out there doing the blasting. It's a one-man operation. So if you can pay somebody or have your wife or husband or neighbor or retired parents, whatever, answer the phones for you so that you're not missing out on any opportunities, that's a great thing to have. My guys who scale up and end up having 5 machines obviously have a crew at that point. And then rust inhibitor.
We didn't even talk about it.
Oh my goodness. So the number one question you guys ask is, does it rust? Does it rust? Does it rust? Does it rust?
Well, any metal exposed to anything, elements, air, oxygen, and water, will effectively rust once it's blasted. But that was, why there is the creation of a rust inhibitor, and that is to give you a little bit of extra time before a next step occurs. So if you're going out on the job and you're in somebody's, home, yard, business, wherever it is, and you're here to strip and prep that surface, you're going to do it on a Monday, and they're going to come back and say, well, my painter isn't coming back until Wednesday. And you're going to be like, we've got you. My rust inhibitor's been applied. You've got about 3 days. Keep it out of any moisture and don't touch it with some oily hands. And you should not see any flash rust, come back. If they leave it and they don't come back, the painter cancels and they don't come back for a week, or they left it outside and it rained, you're going to have to go back first and help them out by reapplying, blasting, reapplying rust inhibitor. An alternative, as we mentioned, though, is trying to understand what is going to happen next for them. If you blast it and you're like, I've used my rust inhibitor, it's going to be good for 3 days or so. When is your next guy coming? And they're like, he's going to be a week. You're like, why don't I apply a sealer to this? That gives you flexibility. That way, if your painter cancels, you don't have to worry about it. And the customer is satisfied. You also just added on to what their potential, quote was from the original quote and made a little bit more money on top of it. Yeah. But that's the beauty of this. Our trailered units and our compressor-ready carts all come with the auxiliary ports on them that allow you to quick connect all kinds of air tools. Yep. But paint guns would be amazing to hook up to that. That would allow you to put on that extra coating or sealer or primer or whatever that thing would be before a next coating was actually going to be applied.
Yeah, so just be transparent with your customer. Hey, I'm wet blasting this, or you requested me to wet blast this. I'm going to be using a rust inhibitor. It needs to be primed within 72 hours.
Exactly.
Done.
Yep. All good.
I know y'all will ask about that again, though. I just know it. Okay, how do I know what media to use and where do I buy? Okay, so I couldn't fit every media on here that can be used in our blast pot, but I did do some of the most popular ones. But there is a link to a full list of abrasive materials on our website. But glass, we've talked about that a few times, just because of the benefits. It is eco-friendly, it's non-toxic, it is so versatile, and it's inexpensive. It's a great option that a lot of our business owners are using. And so because it's angular, and they have glass beads, and then they have crushed glass. So the glass beads are round, more for cleaning, not etching up the surface really hard for a new anchor profile. But that angular media is great for stripping a variety of coatings.
That's right. And it is. It's kind of an all-purpose. If there was one media that we've, kind of discovered, it is this. Just because it is low in expense, low in dust, low in, just price. All the price. Yeah, the ability of it to do so much is it just goes off the charts. It really is versatile from using it at 30 PSI. The result is more like a gentle cleaning. Up to 120, 30 PSI. Now you're getting really aggressive and really, getting after a harder coating. And so it really does. It fits about 70 to 80% of people's requirements, which is amazing for a media. So.
And you can get it all over the United States. There are distributors. We have them linked on our website. So you can type in your zip code and find the closest distributor to you. And people always go, oh, Kaylin, glass? Like if I step on that, you can take it and you can rub it in between your hands. It looks very similar to sand. It's very fine. It really so you don't have to worry about that. And then we have our garnets. So very hard, dense, fast cutting. It's going to hit the surface and make stuff fly off a little bit quicker. So it's really used for some of those tough coatings.
Yeah, and it's, you think of line stripe material, thick epoxy coatings, things that are really, thicker than a traditional single, or multi-level paint layer. Yeah. There's something in it that is almost more of a plastics, and that is going to need something a little more aggressive. Yeah. The main thing to always consider, because we're always going to suggest that you get whatever is cheapest, closest to home, whatever your job requirement is. Sometimes when you win a job, they're going to tell you what media you have to use. So you don't get a lot of choices, and that's okay. Because the main thing you need to be concerned about is how clean is it. So all of the media that goes into our pot, we do have a filter screen too, so it should help catch anything, bigger, but there are some media out there that have a lot of trash in them, and they are a little dirty, so you want to make sure that you're not getting, we've had people pour a bag in and there's been a screw in there's been big chunks of plastic, so you just want to make sure that you're using a good, reputable, clean media, especially when wet blasting. It's going to need to be heavy enough to sink in water. Yeah. If it can't sink, then it's not going to work in a wet setting. And that's where your organics are. We've got corn cob mentioned. We've talked about walnut shell. Organic media like that has to be blasted dry. Yep. And that's okay. And then obviously soda. Soda, they do make some wet tolerant sodas on the market today, but for the most part, that is also a dry application. And again, goes to just the versatility of the pot. You don't need multiple pots, but you do kind of need to understand the what and the why for some of these. We talked about glass bead a little bit. So when we're talking about blasting aluminum surfaces, pontoon boat bottoms, things where you're never really going to apply anything over it again, you can still do that without pitting it in a harsh way. So
yeah, and the soda is also great for your fire restoration. It removes the soot. Lots of great applications for that.
Oh
so
yeah,
definitely
kitchen,
check out the guide.
plant, kitchen, anything where the stainless steel is in food processing plants, commercial kitchens. Soda becomes absolutely a great thing. It reduces smell as well as breaking down grease, as well as being food safe. It is your traditional, baking soda like you would put in your refrigerator.
Yeah.
And so it's really great to use too.
And if you don't know what media to use, if you get a call about a job, you can always call our technical support and we'll help you and advise you which media would be best for that job.
Definitely.
How do I bid jobs? Okay, so we talked about that $300 an hour rate earlier, which is pretty industry standard right now, give or take depending on where you live.
Yeah.
But there are some other ways to bid jobs, and so we have a how to price jobs guide available. This is also where you can use us as a resource or use that contractor group that we talked about earlier.
For sure.
But here's just a few examples on different strategies. Cars, people usually charge a flat rate because they can blast a car so fast. And so they're usually anywhere in that $1,900 to $2,500 mark. I've seen people who ramp that up because they're so busy they don't even really want to do cars. I'll just leave that at that. Boats, people do charge by the linear feet or linear foot, and right now it's about $35, give or take. Concrete, you see that anywhere from $3 to $7 per square foot with a $500 minimum, and then our pool tile cleaning is about $7 to $12 per linear foot.
Yeah, and the one thing that these rates an hour and time don't tell you is how far you're going to get in your removal. So, you might think $300 an hour, well, how many hours am I going to be there? That's why, a test blast is always going to be a great thing. I know we'll talk about that coming up soon, but just, consider the way you bid a job is based on your experience and your time. And eventually you'll use a guide like this initially, but then you'll find your own format and what makes most sense to you, which could adjust this, either more so or less, however it goes, but it becomes a little bit more tailored to your ability and how quickly you can, do a job and get it completed.
Yeah, I'd say my business owners for that first year, because y'all, 90% of the people starting this business have never even seen sandblasting done in person. So everyone is very green that first year. Most of them are going out and doing a test blast and just test blasting a small little square, and just seeing how long it took them to complete that, and how long it took them to complete that small square foot.
Because what you'll find, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
But what I'll find, like the car guys, is you never know how much Bondo or, repair work was done. It can look beautiful on the outside and you start stripping and you're like, well, now half the car's gone because all the Bondo just flew out that I left. Or they don't tell you paint thickness on things. They're going to, call you and say, oh, I've got a painted, old house, say. And then you get there and you start doing the test blast. It's like 15 layers of old house paint.
Right.
That's very different than somebody who just, decided they wanted their, red house to be white all of a sudden and they've done one coat. So that's why the test blasts are also very important so that you really know, because, the customers sometimes don't know. I don't know how many layers of paint are on my house. But if you test blast it, you're going to figure that out and see, and then you're adjusting your rates accordingly.
One that I would always test blast is pool paint. I had a contractor who had been doing this a while. He felt confident bidding pools. He got there and there was bed liner under.
Oh. Yeah.
So luckily in his contract for pools, he says, if I get out there and this coating is not what I think it is, we're going to have to make some changes to this quote. And he makes them sign that so that you can adjust your quote. So that's a good strategy.
Very good
as well for some of those jobs.
To make sure that is on your quote. If you get in there and you find that it is not what they said it was, you're covered so that you can charge more.
Yeah. How do I dispose or recycle the media? Okay, that's great. So if it is a hazardous substance, so if it is lead paint or it has heavy metals off of a barge or something like that, you would have to be certified in disposing that, but that is not the case the case for most.
No, most it is not. It is a, if you're going out on a job and you're doing one, I always use a car example, one vehicle, the amount of spent media that is going to come off of that is nowhere near what would require special disposal.
Yeah.
That can go into an ordinary landfill. You are considered a low use contributor at that point, and it really is, some disposal is based on volume.
Yeah.
And the jobs that you're doing are not going to create the massive volume. These are usually rules that are put in place for actual like body shops, who you're getting car after car after car after car, and you're getting all of this debris that then has to be picked up by a specialty disposal company and disposed of properly. You're generally not going to be in that kind of environment unless you were doing something like asbestos, lead, mold, all of those things. That requires you to be going to a specialty landfill. Most things you can do through project if you can. There's a lot of tarping that goes on using like that thin visqueen tarp. For around boats, around in homes, or on the ground, you roll a car on top of it.
Yeah.
So visqueen is a good product to utilize. Some people, we had a guy one time, he got the old wrapping off of a billboard, and that is what he used. He said it was great. It was free. It was durable. You could use it all the time, but he just laid it out, would roll low, blast on top of it, roll it up, and put it in the dumpster. We talked about dumpster bags that they could be used for collecting that. So it's really easy.
Yeah, the dumpster bag is great. We have that in our online store. It's called the Bagster. And so, I mean, it holds a ton, literally, a ton of abrasive. And so the Waste Management actually partners with you. You call them and let them know, hey, I'm going to be leaving this Bagster outside of my job site. They'll come, pick it up, and dispose of it. So there are a few ways, but just talking with your local Waste Management, if you want to just dispose of it and, your standard landfill, you're good to go.
You're good to go.
How do I find production rates? So we kind of talked about your test blast. That's really the best way if you're trying to get, the most accurate production rates. But I will say that as you get into this line of work and you see how quickly it removes thin paint and epoxy and just different coatings, you'll be able to write those down and really keep track of that. We do have a resource online that has production rates too. Now they're generalized, right? Because you might think something is just one coat and then you get there and it's something else. And so that's also why we really recommend you guys look at that contractor group or call us to help give you an accurate estimate, because every job is different. But not only is every job different, your production rate is going to be determined by what air compressor size you have, what media you use, if you're wet blasting or dry blasting. And so there's just so many variables that it's hard for me to just say, hey, you're going to blast this in this amount of time.
Right.
I kind of would have to have a sit-down phone call with you to iron out all of the variables and then go from there and maybe recommend a media or, recommend a machine to really dive into each different production rate.
Right. Because with everything, there are also certain levels of blasting. There's a NACE protocol for blasting. So you've got anything from a brush blast, which is just basically getting flake off, and they don't need it brought back to its original substrate. Or you've got your, white metal blast, which means you are back to its original form, and it's like it just came out all over again, brand spanking new.
Yep.
So it's a wide variation there, and has to be appropriate based on the job function that you're trying to do. A brush blast is probably going to be utilized often, more often than you think. You just want to make sure you're asking that question and know, what are you doing next? How clean does this have to be able to accept that next coating and make sure you've achieved the proper anchor profile?
That's great. I think that's the number one question everybody should write down is, after I leave here, what is happening to the surface? What is your next step? And that can determine what kind of blast you need to do.
Right.
How do I handle competition in my area? So we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but
Answer your phone.
I'm like, my phone's ringing? Do I need to leave? Answer your phone. But also, you know, if there were one painter in the Houston area, he would be slammed. This is kind of the opposite of that, but very similar in the sense of just because there's someone down the street from you does not mean they are doing the same projects as you.
Right.
We talked about my pool guy who just does pools. I have a boat guy who just does boats. And it gets that way because when you start off and you start reaching out to these businesses, and you land that first job, he ends up connecting you with someone else, or he ends up having more work for you for his business. And so you just kind of get plugged into different industries, and then you tend to prefer to stay in that lane because you know it. You've built the reputation there, you know the people there, and that's what I would say a lot of people do. Some guys do truly want to take on anything and everything in the first year to kind of get themselves just familiar with the equipment, with the different jobs available. But as far as competition goes, if there's someone 20 miles away from you, I would not let that stop me from starting this business because of how busy a lot of our customers really
How
are.
variable the industries or jobs that you could be getting are. If you're, you know, if your guy down the street is the boat guy, I mean, even if you are both boat guys, it doesn't matter. Even if you are in the same realm of industry, there are Starbucks on every corner, there are gas stations on every corner, there are so many things on every corner, and that's okay, because if you become the one with the actual gold standard, if you do a good job, you do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it, that becomes the reason somebody's going to give you a call. As we said, starting this business, you've got to be willing to answer the phone. You have to have somebody that is there, because we're all in that instant gratification kind of thing. If you don't answer the phone the first time, then I've moved on to the next guy. And I didn't call you back. And that's not, to me, that's not competition. That's
Just good business practice.
Business practice. Exactly right. So I don't think there's a way, you know, to, if I'm honest, I think you should handle the competition by being strong in your business practice, with your rates, and with your time. You are worth all of the above, and you need everybody to understand that. And when you do good work on top of it, that is respected. And then you know what? Next time, that next person, they're gonna wait the extra 3 to 5 days or a week and a half to get you to come back, rather than going down the lane and just dialing. So you becoming the reputable business owner that you will become, I think, handles competition for you. It's important. I mean, you stand behind what you do, and that makes you a great business owner. And, you know, getting started, I think, is the hard part. Every step, no matter what project you're undertaking, step one is always the hardest. But when you start to handle it with the kind of, you know, gratitude that you have towards the project that you're doing, towards the customer that you're interfacing with, I mean, paybacks come that way, and that's from you. You know, like I said, you can't do more than do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And utilizing that contractor group, you'll see people are posting, hey, I can't get to this job. Is anybody willing to step in or partner with me or just take it over? So you'll see that the community is really great too.
Or you get to be, you know, somewhere, like we said, a lot of times you end up starting on things, and then your project life has taken on a tangent, and you started doing something different. And so you might still get those calls for something that you used to do, but now you just don't have the time for it. It's not of your interest anymore. So handing that off to somebody, and now you're both winning. It's just, you know, competition. Another thing, a lot of guys have teamed up. We've had multiple people team up to do big projects, and that's important too. So I mean, competition doesn't have to be a negative thing. I think it can be sought out as healthy, and utilized correctly, it can actually be a win-win.
What are the hardest parts for starting and scaling this business? I think the hardest part is just when you have never been in this industry, there's so much information. And so it might feel overwhelming, but truly once you get in the groove of things, it is like second nature. I'll say, like, starting up your machine, that's easier. I mean, it's easier than working our printer. So really just learning all the little variables, you know, what media to use, how to bid jobs. I would say that's kind of the two hardest things that most people say. Most people say using the equipment is not the hard
It's
part.
not,
It's
yeah.
how to find your sweet spot where, because there's so many pressure settings and you adjust your media flow and all these different things that, you know, we'll go over with you when the time comes. That kind of is overwhelming. And so I'd say that is just a little bit of a learning curve. And then also just being in business for yourself for the first time. If you know, you've never owned a business, it is just a lot of new things
information
all at once.
all at once. Yeah.
But go ahead.
I was just going to say, I would just introduce again, I go back to knowing and realizing that you need to understand your machine and how it's going to operate. So when you get it, I suggest getting it home and actually start practicing on some stuff. Get yourself a car part, a piece of steel.
Go to a junkyard.
Call a powder coater in your area and ask them for their, stuff that they've junked, that they can't use anymore, so that you have something that you can test on. And once you understand and get comfortable and confident with what it is that you're trying to remove, then you are the one speaking with confidence as you go into that next, business opportunity. You're going to go, knock on that business door and you're going to be like, well, what are you currently doing? I'm outsourcing. Well, let me tell you, I just did this project at home. Took me 2 minutes to get this done. And you just told me that you're waiting 3 days to get something done.
I'll get it done right now.
Yeah. So the hardest part is just understanding how much believing in yourself enough to say, I can confidently do this for you and provide you this service.
Yeah.
And just making sure you know how to best use your machine. That way you don't get there and you start it up for the first time right in front of the customer. That's probably not gonna, be the best way to get started. So I can't suggest enough actually getting to know your machine. It's going to be almost like very personal to you, because as I've said before, like, I'm 5'2". I'm going to be standing really super close. I might have to, if I'm too close, then I might have to back up. But if there's a guy next to me and he's 6'4", he can probably stand 5 feet back and accomplish the same thing. And so we kind of equate this to being like an artist. I mean, everybody holds the brush different. Everybody applies pressure different.
Yeah.
And then the variable of the machine pressure, like there's a lot that needs to become in sync. And so you're only going to be able to achieve that by testing it first and foremost when you get at home. So that is understanding your tool and working that tool in the best way is going to make you successful to get the business that you need.
Yeah, and then if you don't remember everything that we told you, when you get home and you're practicing, you can call tech support and be like, hey, I don't remember what you said about XYZ, help me. So,
yes, absolutely.
As far as scaling goes, once you have that first year and you've made some connections, I would ramp up the marketing and I would ramp up using those connections, right? So in getting on that subcontractor list and really the scaling that I've seen recently is they buy their mobile their first year and by almost the second year, they're ready for their next one. And in some cases, by the third year, they are ready for their third one. I mean, it's crazy how quickly it can grow if that is your goal.
Right.
Some people, they just want to work as little as possible. No judgments. Me too. They want to work as little as possible, just make enough money to support their family and be home by dinner time. And that's amazing.
Right.
Some people want to work 60-hour weeks and make $1 million a year. You can do both with this system. So it's all about how you want to run the business and what your goals are. And then we can help you achieve those.
Yeah, and scaling the business can have a couple of different, definitions too internally. Like we mentioned, I go back to the building again. If you went and were in it for the graffiti or whatever else, but then, then you get these GCs calling you and they're like, but I need this concrete thing done. I need all the sealer removed from it. Well, now you're starting to get all these concrete calls. And if you've got enough calls coming in for graffiti, but then all of a sudden all these concrete calls are coming in, that machine can't be in 2 places at once.
Yep.
So then you start thinking, okay, second machine, I've got a tangent business doing something different.
Yep.
Not saying they couldn't, interchange and swap out, but that's when you start seeing the need for second machines. And that is what I consider scaling your business, when you're adding to your fleet because your business is growing in different industries. Where now you're starting to develop true crews and actual people that are joining your business with you.
Yeah. Can the machine be shipped to me or international shipping?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yep.
We can provide you a freight quote on your quote for the machine to your address. We can also arrange an offloading service for an additional fee if you do not have access to a loading dock, which is usually required to offload these things. So we can take care of all of that for you and give you the cost on that. Or you can pick up in person and do your demo at the time of pickup. For my friends in Canada, we can still quote you shipping and import taxes and fees. We're happy to take care of all that for you.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, we did it.
Good.
Well,
Awesome.
thank you guys so much for all the really great questions. This has been really fun.
So
We
fun.
love doing this with you. And if there's a question that didn't get answered, we're sorry. We're trying to keep it, low on time. But if there's anything that you feel like we missed, please give us a call. We'd be happy to talk with you on your exact goals, what you need, and answer any direct questions for you and send you the resources to review. We will be sending an email out with a recap of this entire webinar and a link to all of the resources that we mentioned so that you can continue your research. But it's been fun, and we thank you guys so much for joining. We'll see you next time.
Look forward to hearing from you.
Dreaming of owning your own business? At Dustless Blasting, we're here to help make that dream a reality. We're more than just equipment makers. We're your partners in creating a pathway to financial freedom. For over 80 years, we've been helping people just like you turn their goals into thriving businesses. When you join the Dustless Blasting family, you're never really on your own. From expert guidance to industry knowledge, we provide the support, tools, and resources you need every step of the way. No franchise fees, no limitations, just you, your drive, and a business that works as hard as you do. Dustless Blasting. Take control of your future. Start building something incredible today.